Welcome to another episode of Couch Catechism. I'm your host, Michael Obeid. On tonight's talk, we've got a very special guest with us again, Tony Mattar. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thanks, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show. Now, the title for tonight's talk, or somewhere along the lines, was that we wanted to talk about the rise of the radical left, enemies against the church, and the Christian response. And I thought no better person to speak to about that than you, because you've been involved a lot. Yeah. So before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do at the moment? And I guess that'll be a lead into what... Sorry, tell us a little bit about what you do at the moment.
Yeah.
Your role, and then give us a bit of history after that.
All right. So, again, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Worries.
Great show, great initiative. It's just really good. Basically, I work for the Archdiocese of Sydney,
yep.
And I work in the university sector. So we have University Chaplaincies of the Archdiocese of Sydney, and we're across the 4 university campuses. So all the secular universities.
Okay.
So not the universities that are Catholic, but the universities where it's secular and you're really on the front line. So a lot of people say, a lot of our universities are very left-leaning,
yep.
Which is very true,
yep.
But there's hope out there.
Okay.
There's hope. And so we have staff, whether they're priests, Dominican sisters, lay consecrated women, or lay staff, across all the campuses, and we have things that are happening every day on campus. So mass, Bible studies, retreats. We've got a retreat coming up on Saturday this week.
Okay.
We just facilitate and make sure we keep the Catholic faith alive to all those students.
And your role, it's changed over the last couple of years. How long have you been involved in your current role?
Okay, so I'm my current role 2 years, so I'm like kind of the coordinator of the agency.
Yep.
But I used to be the evangelization officer, which was the front line all the way back at UNSW, so about 7 years ago now. And then after being on the front line called the evangelization officer, I moved to being a team leader, which was just in charge of like 4 or 5 staff at Sydney University.
Yep.
And that's what we'll get into later on. And then from that role, I jumped into this role, which is the kind of like the manager's role now.
And you've been in this role for about 2 years now?
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
So how did it all start for you? Like, how did you first get involved in evangelization and chaplaincy?
So I was, it's part of my story actually. So fresh out of high school, I don't have one of those conversion stories where it's, drugs and things like that. But it was just a simple story that had to do with the Miraculous Medal.
Okay.
And a lot of people know me for the Miraculous Medal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on my work break at Chemist Warehouse on Church Street, Parramatta. And there were these Christians that were just walking around the area there, and they were going up to people and just talking to them. And surprisingly, someone came up to me, and I was wearing a Miraculous Medal.
Yep.
And the gentleman...
were you practicing your faith?
No, not really.
Time?
No, I
okay.
just wore it as a Maronite Catholic, we just wore religious items and stuff.
Yep.
And I remember he gave me a leaflet that said the Potter's House on it. And it was a Christian. At the time, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know there was a difference between different Christians and everything like that. So he starts questioning me about my Miraculous Medal and why am I wearing it? It's a form of idolatry and things of that nature. And I didn't know what to say. I mean, I knew it was good to wear it. I knew it was the right thing to do, but I actually didn't know why I was wearing it. I couldn't defend myself. I knew like the Adra, she'll protect me.
Yep.
I knew all that, but I actually couldn't back it up.
Did you feel a bit embarrassed?
I felt very embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I felt like a sense of a bit of injustice. Like, what am I doing with myself?
Okay.
At the time, I was doing a psychology degree at Sydney Uni, so I was in my second year of psych. And this all relates. So that happens, and he gave me his card and whatever, and I didn't have any answers for him. So I thought I'm going to go back home, do some research, and if I see him again, maybe I'll be a bit more prepared. Mm-hmm. So I go back home, we did about nights of research, reading about Mary and everything like that. And then a few days later, I see him again, only a few days later, so shorter than a week. And he comes up to me again, and he goes, "Do you remember?" I go, yeah, I did some research. And then I thought, yep, I'm going to start with some scripture. I remember like Luke 1:28, Genesis 3:15. And I thought I was ready, but then he had answers to all these scriptural verses.
That you thought that he wouldn't have answers to?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I froze. I remember freezing. And I was like, then what do I believe in? I mean, it's wrong. What I believe in is wrong.
So you actually started questioning the Catholic faith?
Yeah,
okay.
Especially about him quoting even the catechism to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like...
Was he Catholic?
I didn't know. No.
Okay.
He was... And I didn't even know what the catechism was. He said,
okay.
Did you know what this is? And I'm like, no.
Okay.
What's the catechism?
Wow.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, what is it? What am I going to do? So he gave me his number, and that's when it got a bit more serious, because I was like, I want to know what I'm believing in.
Yep.
I went home, and all of a sudden that night I actually started crying. I had a little statue of Mary in my room.
Yep.
And I started crying because I felt like I couldn't defend Mother Mary. And it got to me, and I really did. And I mean, like, I was in tears because I knew what I believed was right, but I couldn't defend it. And so this begins, and it's funny how God can work in mysterious ways, because my whole line of work since then has always been on the front line and defending it. I don't know, and I would never ever think I'd be in this position where I was from just meeting this Christian in Church Street, Parramatta.
Okay.
So then I said to myself, I'm going to be serious about this. I'm going to stop my degree and I'm going to go learn theology and philosophy. Yeah.
That's serious?
That's serious. So
Wow.
I dropped my degree, and it didn't go well with my mum.
Wow.
And my mum and dad, they weren't happy about it.
Okay.
Dropping a psychology degree to go do philosophy and theology. And it was very providential, because the year I applied was the first year that Notre Dame offered philosophy and theology as a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And I was the first to graduate with that degree in my cohort.
And so how long had you been doing psychology at
2 years. So
university?
it's from like 20... So I graduated in 2008.
Okay.
So 2008 to 2009 to 2010.
And you were doing well in psychology?
Yeah, I was enjoying it. I
almost
didn't have an
about to
issue.
finish?
I didn't have an issue. I probably had 2 more years to go.
Wow.
But it took that kind of... Well, that's how much that encounter with the Christian men had on me.
That really affected you?
Yeah, it really affected me, because I've always had this conviction for truth.
Okay.
And...
But did you feel as though he was telling you the truth? Or did you feel as though he was telling you a lie, but you didn't know how to...
Yeah.
How to reply?
Yeah, like, he wasn't deceiving, because I truly could tell he believed what he was telling me.
What he was saying.
So he wasn't trying to deceive me, but he was trying to enlighten me. But I felt like maybe it was my baptismal grace,
Yep.
it probably was, that protected me in saying, don't go that far. Go learn your own faith before you start
dabbling in someone else's.
Yeah, and so I did. And that's I'll never forget the day walking into my interview into my bachelor's degree. I couldn't find the Notre Dame uni. I never heard of it from Central Station. I remember walking down Central Station, and I see a nun, and she's walking down. I said, "Look, I'm so sorry, but could you please help me? I'm trying to find the theology department of the University of Notre Dame." She goes, "Is your name Tony?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, my name's Tony." And she's like, "Yep, I've got your interview. Your interview's with me." I was like, "Oh, wow."
So you ended up walking down
yeah,
with
we
her,
ended
and
up
then she
walking down with
ended up
her.
interviewing you?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it worked out really well. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was in 2000. That would have been 2011. So
Okay, and that's when you started your degree at Notre Dame?
yeah, and so this relates to the chaplaincy work, because in my final year of chaplaincy work, in my final year of my studies, I was approached by Christian Stevens, in fact, who was working at UNSW, and I was really involved in my Maronite parish at Our Lady Lebanon whilst I was doing my degree. So I was running the teens group there, and
how long had you been doing that for?
that was probably when I started my theology degree, so probably about 4 or 5 years.
That's when you wanted to start getting involved?
Yeah. So at the start of my degree, I realised it's good to have the theory, but I felt like let's try and apply it. And my parish, really, like at Our Lady Lebanon in Harris Park, we weren't really focused on teens as much, and so we started to really build up big numbers in teens. Like every Saturday, you probably get 200 teenagers come to the church.
Yeah, you're very successful there. Like, you had a lot of people that were enrolled, and part of the Veraces group.
Yeah, for as well.
Veraces and the teens.
Yeah, but teens was like where my heart was at, because I felt like we didn't have this as a teenager, and I really want to try and give something back. So
there was something missing.
Yeah, we started retreats there. Our first, and till this day, retreats still go on. Yeah, so it's from what
and you've got a good friend of yours now that's taken over.
Yeah,
he's
AJ, who was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. You know,
beautiful.
he's taken over now. There's a new Joseph Cruz involved in there now.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that's still thriving. That's still a good legacy to that we can say, you know, we built from scratch, so to speak.
Okay, so then continue on.
Yeah, so Christian was a parishioner at Our Lady Lebanon. He saw all the volunteer work I was doing and a lot of the work I was doing. He said to me, "Do you want to try this at a university level?" And at first I was pretty reluctant, because I felt like, university, very intellectual people, it's going to be really intense. They're going to have all these arguments.
Going to be challenging.
Yeah, it's going to be really challenging. And I knew, I sensed studying at Sydney Uni, like the culture is very left.
Yeah.
It's in your face. No one hides it.
And when you say left, just so that our viewers know, what do you mean by left?
So all the views that you think kind of are normal. So, and we're going to get into this later. So things like, same-sex marriage, and things like, abortion, and all these topics that we really think are just, everyone believes this. No, like, a lot of people don't believe in God anymore.
Yep.
A lot of people don't have, they don't believe in the same morals and ethics that we grew up
Yep.
in. And so that's what I mean. So there's this tend to move away from like your conservative or your traditional views on certain topics in society.
Yep.
Okay. And so the slogan right now at Sydney Uni, everything is called unlearn. Unlearn truth. Unlearn love. Unlearn maths. Unlearn?
Now,
Like that's the marketing campaign.
So that's their philosophy. That's their philosophy. And are they saying it as though what you have learnt was not true? It's now to unlearn the lies, the brainwash, and be taught the truth? Or are they saying just unlearn everything that you've learnt because nothing needs to make sense?
Yeah, so
there is no such thing as truth.
Yeah.
Everything is relative.
That's right. So it's more twofold, but it does link towards the later of there is no absolute truth. There is no one should tell you exactly how you should think about something.
You just live your own life because
It's very materialistic. It's very that Marx that
naturalistic, materialistic.
Yeah, that's
okay.
right. That's
wow.
right. So anyway, so this gets me to my final year. I said, okay, fine, Christian, I'll say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for the role. The convener at the time was Daniel Hill, very good friend, and I got the role. I was interviewed. I got the role at UNSW. I was probably 20 at the time. 20 or 21. 21.
And that's a good
Yeah.
thing though, because what were you planning on doing anything with your theology and philosophy degree?
I wanted to continue to do masters and maybe a PhD and enter into maybe lecturing or something or teaching of the type, but
Alright.
not high school teaching or anything.
But this fit well with your degree.
Yeah, it came out of. I did not expect this. I could never ever see myself when I was speaking to this Christian man, debating me, and end up working in the church and then educating and teaching.
And then
others
being involved in evangelization and chaplaincy.
No, I'd never ever thought.
Wow.
And it just shows that God's path for us is we got to rely on Him.
Yeah.
Like we can't rely on ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I really attribute a lot of this to God's grace and where I am today, and even meeting my wife, and we've got 3 kids.
Awesome.
Thanks be to God.
Awesome.
It's all part of God's plan. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then you are in evangelization at the University of, where did you start your first role?
University of New South Wales. So
University of New South Wales.
Kensington, like Randwick.
And from there, what happened there? Like what was life like on campus? How have things been going with that?
It was good. It was quite like the vibe. There was nothing really heated. I was really trying to familiarize myself with how do I evangelize to university students and how do we just little things. So we just started little groups like an apologetics group.
Yep.
Students I found really resonated with it. Mm-hmm. You'd probably get 16 to 20 kids once a week come and just wanting to learn scripture, wanting to learn how to defend their faith.
Okay.
That was really big. And so I started to ask them why. And they would say to me, apart from chaplaincy on campus, they always felt like their faith was being attacked in lectures. Even if it had nothing to do with the church, even if it was just on law, if it was something on history, some way, shape or form,
the lecture would have some sort of anti-Catholic history.
Yeah. So every case scenario, every example that was given was kind of just throwing the seed of the Catholic.
Yeah.
And so our students, and still to this day it happens, and it even gets worse.
Yep.
I get invited to go to the Intro to Philosophy lecture at Sydney Uni, which is usually disproving Aquinas' 5 ways, for example.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, wow.
Okay.
Is that the standard of education we have for tertiary students now?
That's interesting.
It's very interesting. And so
it's almost like it's intentionally anti-Catholic. An anti-theist, anti-God.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, obviously they are secular universities, and that's why I want to make that point clear. We know what we're in for.
Yep.
Working on the front lines at these unis. However, a third of university students probably come from the Catholic education system anyway.
That's true.
So they've got some kind of Catholic upbringing.
Yep.
And we're there to continue that and nurture that and make that grow. So
And just for a bit of feedback, because I teach in a Catholic school myself, those third of students that you're getting that are coming from Catholic schools, would you say they know their faith well or not really?
No, I wouldn't say they know extremely well. No.
Okay.
No. That's why when we offer things like the Mass or a biblical walk through the Mass, something like that, it's very new to a lot of people.
Okay.
It's very new to a first year or second year uni student.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's probably what I'd say there. And then so from UNSW, we had a new beautiful building at the John Paul II Student Centre open up in 2015.
Yep.
And that's where I was asked to be the team leader to run the day-to-day operations in that centre, and that's named after JP2, and there's a first-class relic of his hair in the altar there. It's beautiful.
Awesome. That's awesome.
It's a great space, on campus, and please God, we can have something like that across all the unis one day.
Yeah.
And so that's where things started to get heated. So Sydney Uni is I would say, has probably the most passionate beliefs amongst students across the 4 secular universities.
And when you say passionate beliefs, you mean passionate in all spectrums. So, for example, there's a lot of passionate atheists there. There's a lot of passionate humanists. There are a lot of passionate Catholics.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of everything there, aren't you?
Yeah. So that's right. That's right. It's a big mix. People have, and they're pretty vocal about what they believe in at that particular university campus.
Yeah.
Student politics itself is very big on campus. So when they run for SRC campaigns and things like that, well, I remember we had a student run for a campaign and she got really bullied. They found out she was Catholic.
Wow.
I had to physically walk next to her, so because she was worried that she might get pushed or shoved or assaulted. Just walk into a class.
Wow.
Yeah, so it can get really intense, and especially if they consider you from the right.
Yep.
And not just you're from the right, but if you're a Catholic.
Okay.
You become really a target, and
So free speech is not one of their tenets.
No, so I would say free speech is something that unites all the other groups on campus in the sense of they all disagree. They don't actually practice it at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I noticed that come to the fore when it came to the same-sex marriage debate.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with that? First from campus.
Okay.
On campus, in your dealings with some of these left-wing factions, leading up to the campaign itself.
Yeah. So every week on campus, we would set up a store. We call it the evangelization store, right? And we just simply have a Bible, some rosary beads, catechisms, things like that. And people come and inquire about the Catholic faith.
Yep.
Okay. We've had priests become priests just because of this table.
Okay.
Things
good.
like
So
that.
There's a lot of fruit there.
Yeah, there's a lot of fruit. And so this particular one, which we filled out the paperwork with the uni, had the green light as we normally would. It fell in the week of, it fell in the debate with the same-sex marriage. So we thought we'd tailor the theme of this store around the Vote No campaign and things like that. So we simply had material that were given to us from the Vote No campaign. So everything was, legitimate. Like, it's not as if we went to some random website and printed something. No, it was all what it
was all legitimate?
Yeah, it was all legitimate. And so that was the material we had. And we even handing out free kebabs on the day.
Yep.
And my mum made the hummus on the day. Everyone knows my mum's hummus.
And I heard that you had there was a very smart slogan for those viewers that are probably too young to remember. It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that slogan and what it actually means?
Yeah. So you'll see these placards that say in like a light purple and light black, it's okay to say no, because really people were feeling like you can't say, if you say no, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
You're a homophobe.
You're a bigot.
You're
a homophobe.
Bigot. We just wanted to get the message out. It's okay to have a different opinion. That's what it means. It's okay. You don't hate the person. You just have a different opinion to the person. And there's a very big difference in there.
Yep.
And so that was the message we were conveying on the day.
Yeah. And it's obviously, sorry, just to stop you there, but obviously, like, there's more to it than that. Like, to vote no, it's actually it's backed by reason. It's backed by logic. When we have a look at traditional marriage and the foundations of society as a whole, it's just that we wanted to get that message across that to your basic common person, that don't let people bully you into thinking that you're a bigot. Don't let people bully you into thinking that you're against, or that you have something personally against homosexuals, or that you want to see them die like some fundamentalist or some fanatical Christian groups, for example. Yeah, it's different than that.
That's right.
Yeah, we're different to them.
And it's also this view that anything traditional is bad.
Yep.
Just because you have a belief that extends to more than 2,000 years, that doesn't make you a bad person. And doesn't mean there's no like time limit on our beliefs as well. And that's the other thing.
So they don't have an expiry date.
That's right.
They're timeless.
That's right. And just because you have, and maybe a lot of your friends might not have these beliefs in schools or in the workplace, just because the majority disagree with you on something doesn't make it the right truth or the right principle to go by.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Okay,
so continue on with what happened.
And so on that day, I remember setting up the store, and it all started with an international student coming up to the store, and she was probably in her second year, and she said, "What are you guys about?" And I go, "Oh, look, just quickly, we're from the Vote No campaign, and we're considered staff on this campus, and we're just here to talk to people about their different beliefs on this topic, as we would every single week on any topic. And so I gave her a flyer. I go, what do you think about some of the things that are said in this flyer? And so she stood there looking at the flyer for about 30 seconds, and she didn't really say anything. So I was like, maybe I should say, no. Okay, well, so what do you think? And she put the flyer down, and she literally flipped the tables with everything on it.
Wow.
So the hummus.
What was on the table?
Hummus, all the flyers, kafta, mobile phones that broke.
Wow.
All these things got flipped, and
Wow.
she ran off. She literally ran off.
Okay.
So I tried to I did not expect that, right?
Yep.
I tried to pull out my phone quickly, maybe get a photo of her face to report it to campus, but she ran down Eastern Avenue like really
So
fast.
gone.
Gone. Couldn't chase her down. And I'm pretty quick, yeah? Like
Yeah.
I played rugby league growing up.
Okay, yeah.
And I still got my quickness, but I couldn't catch her, you know? So she ran. Then I was worried because I'm team leader, so I have to quickly go back just in case something else gets a bit more violent. Because you could see, we set up at 9:30. By about 10:30, you could see a pocket of people. By about 11:30, about 30 people. By about midday, 60 people. And every hour, it just got bigger and bigger. And it started very vocal, but then it got physical.
Okay.
She started the physical very early in the morning, but there wasn't really a lot of people around. So God forbid if there were about 60 of them there and she flipped the table, who knows what would have happened to us physically.
Okay.
But when she flipped the table, there weren't many kind of...
Oh, when it happened.
Yeah, when
so
it
it didn't
happened.
really start instigating anything serious.
But it kind of gave them the excuse, you know what? It looks like they're not going to retaliate, so let's
just keep going.
And then it started throughout the day, the discussions, and then you start seeing all these different news outlets coming. Newtown Police came down.
Yep.
Channel 9, Channel 7, everyone was there, right?
And when did it start to get really serious?
Probably about midday, so
Okay.
just after midday, so around 1 o'clock, because the food was ready by then.
Yep.
And I remember we were offering them food to eat, dialogue with us, be peaceful about it, and have some food on us.
Yep.
And they were mocking us when we were giving them the food. Oh, let's eat on their behalf and saying silly things.
Mm-hmm.
And then so then it got to the point where they started. You could hear them chanting things against Catholic. It wasn't even about marriage anymore.
Yep.
It just became about being Catholic.
Yep. And they just started attacking.
Everything attacking, and rubbing condoms on our faces, throwing glitter at us, rubbing the hummus on my face.
Yep. Didn't they kick your friend or
Yeah,
someone got kicked?
There's this footage that shows me yelling at one of the persons who's saying, I'm yelling, why did you kick him? Why did you kick him? And I look back and I see one of our students who was just standing afar because he was scared.
Yep.
He was scared. He started grabbing his knees and almost started crying because his shins were getting kicked because they stole his sign that said it's okay to say no.
And they started hitting him.
Well, they started kicking him to get it off him because he was in pain, and they ripped it off, and you could see them running off with the sign. And that's when I couldn't, inside, I was like, we've got to act as a witness here. Now, not physical, but to be vocal and say, you have no right to kick him. Why are you kicking him?
And one of the leaders of this little faction, is he the head of a left-wing action group on campus?
Yeah, so in fact, he's actually employed. He was employed by the uni as the queer officer and to create a safe space for students on campus.
And he was doing the opposite.
And he was doing the exact opposite on the day.
Because he was swearing at you. He was swearing at our Lord as well.
Yeah, he was saying some really some blasphemous things that I don't even want to say on the show.
And he just got really angry. He was even being physically violent as well.
And he was the one that was actually kicking.
Did anything bad happen to him? Was any action taken against him?
From what we know, no.
Nothing.
No.
So nobody pressed charges against him, or did people try?
No one pressed charges.
Because I even heard that he even tried to run for council. He tried to run it as a Greens
a couple
member
of years.
well.
I think last year, the year before, in the Barton area.
In the Barton council.
But
Barton
the footage got leaked, and I heard that.
And that lost
it affected his candidacy things.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's just one, right? So I would say that they all belong to an ideology, like the socialist Marxist movement.
Yep.
Which is really about, Karl Marx known to say that it's about abolishing truths and religions.
Yeah. Well, he did say that religion is the opiate of the people. Is that people need religion like they need a drug in order to get them going from day to day. When there's no truth there.
And on all their flyers, you always see his name, Karl Marx. And if you don't know anything about it, just research who he is, what he believed in. And a lot of these movements today are hijacked on his principles and run off his ideologies and philosophies. And so as Christians, we need to know our enemy. And when I say enemy, I don't mean in the sense of we hate the person, but know what you're up against. Because if you're a first year or second year student, or even if you're a parent, right, you're sending your kids to spend 3 years or at the minimum at one of these campuses, and
at one of these universities.
and they spend at least, depending on the degree, if they're studying full-time or part-time, 5 to 6 hours a day.
Yep.
Of course they're going to start to get influenced. And when you're 18, you just get out of high school, you have that sense of liberation, There's that sense of, I can make all these choices myself now.
Yep.
I can now vote, I get my own Medicare, I can do all my own things.
But you also see with people around that age, they also want to change the world as well.
Yeah.
So they become very ideological as well. And they can swing either way.
Exactly
right.
Going
from at school probably being a little bit effeminate and probably just only caring about themselves and being self-centered, they now start to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But when really they haven't had the ability to take care of themselves yet, they've still just come out of home.
Yeah.
And now they want to pick a side almost. And they'll go with the most influential group. So the campuses are a not a breeding ground, but the campuses, they're kind of like fertile soil for evangelization, true evangelization to take place.
Yeah.
And you've seen that?
Oh, I've seen that in many times. I can't express. So after that store, and so after we stood there and we were attacked and things, days after, we were getting handwritten letters by senior lecturers who would remain anonymous and say how much they are supporting what we're doing through our witness of not the retaliation that the other side had.
Through your peaceful witness.
Through the peaceful witness. We had campus security. There were moments when we have Eucharistic processions on campus. So a bit off this now, when we were doing things like Eucharistic processions, we had campus security that would kneel down from 20 meters away to venerate and acknowledge our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. There are, a lot of vocations that have come through chaplaincy work. I can think of 3 or 4 young girls now in Nashville, Dominican sisters in Nashville, have made vows and
who probably started their vocation through.
Well, yeah, they attribute their vocation story to a lot of. Probably raised Catholic, but attribute to having a good kind of in a secular environment, having a Catholic hub around that would facilitate and nurture their faith. That is very different to high school.
Yep.
Because in high school, if you go to a Catholic school, I guess you could say no one's really anti-Catholic explicitly.
Yep.
But when you get to university, it can become like that.
Yep.
And you become really alienated, and you can, you want that sense of community. You want people to have the same views as you.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think chaplaincy is such an important evangelization tool, an agency that the Archdiocese is invested in, and has put great people in great areas that really allow these
kind of programs to flourish in order to be able to send out a net to be able to catch these vocations and
not just vocation wise to the religious or the priesthood, but it's also future young professionals
as well
that end up in being involved and becoming good lawyers, becoming good doctors, standing up for the right ethics and morals that that they need, because ultimately you need qualification these days to make it far.
Yeah.
And they do look at sometimes the university you went to to kind of
kind of like what St. Jose Maria Escrivá says about sanctifying your work or sanctifying the world through your work.
Yeah.
So that's important too.
That's right. Yeah.
Now we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
With regards to the Vote No campaign or to the same-sex marriage campaign, I was involved in it as well, and I remember, and you just fill me in on this as well if I miss certain bits, but during the campaign it was very important for us to go. There was a concerted effort, and we said that in order to try to get as many people as possible to vote no on this for this campaign, a strategy that was used was that we wanted to go out to parishes and get people to get involved within their electorates, but also to go out and to door knock in areas that seem very on the fence. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences, what you noticed when you went to give out to talks at parishes, what the feedback that you were getting, was it successful? Did it fail?
Yeah. It's a really good question to think about and reflect upon, because from at glance we could have won. We could have won.
You think we could have won?
Yeah, I think we could have won if the Catholics, especially the Catholics, really took more serious about what the message we were trying to convey, which was there is a ripple effect to allowing the redefinition of marriage.
Yep.
And it's gonna have to do with education of the kids in schools, safe schools programs. There's gonna be, when you open the door a little bit, there's gonna be a lot more, and people kind of didn't really buy into that. Even Catholics didn't really buy into that.
And did Catholics also think that it was an uphill battle and that we were gonna lose it from the start, which is the reason why a lot of them didn't get involved in the first place?
Yeah, of course.
What would you say to that though?
I think that's like almost. I don't know if
Is
you
it a
call
wrong
it
mentality
sin,
to get started
but
with?
like you're kind of limiting God.
Okay.
Like, where's your hope? Where's your sense of hope and even perseverance?
Yep.
Where's your sense of fortitude and like perseverance to try and fight to the end and trying to win?
So did you personally go out to parishes,
Yeah.
or were you asked to
Okay.
go out to parishes and to speak about strategies in order to go out and
Of
door knock
course.
and get people to
Of
convince
course,
people who were
yeah.
probably on the fence to vote no?
Yeah, so basically, we would go out to, man, I remember going out to probably 2 or 3 parishes every Saturday and Sunday and give a quick spiel about do's and don'ts. If someone gets violent, don't have to respond. Just quick tips, practical tips, and then give them the resources to go out, give them the maps of the addresses, and, this is how it was organised.
And were the parishes welcoming? Did you have a lot of people that were there hearing your talks?
Parishes were welcoming, but I was really upset with the attendance of people coming and like the lack of attendance of people coming.
Yep.
You would have a parish that could probably on a Sunday have close to 200 or 300 people, and then maybe 8 people rock up on a Saturday.
Wow.
I mean, if that's the state of the church, if that's the response that we're going to have in 2017, what message are we going to send to our kids, to the future generations, about standing up for what we believe in?
Yep.
And that's why I say we could have won.
And this is during the heart of the campaign.
This is during the pinnacle of the campaign, where if you looked at the statistics and the data of where we knocked,
Yep.
all the suburbs that we knocked
Yep.
ended up voting no.
Okay.
There was also this mentality in the campaign, look, don't go out to the areas where they're going to vote yes no matter
Regardless. So stay
what.
away
But I
from
always
those.
questioned it.
Okay.
I always said to myself, okay, sure, but what if we just change the heart of one person, and that one person might have a conversation with their spouse or their family?
Yep.
What if that ripple effect? But in saying that also, we were very limited.
As well, because I was going to say, I probably agree with you, but in terms of like if we want to look at how productive the
Yeah.
event was, I don't think we had the numbers.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was probably better to go out to those areas where we knew that they were conservative votes. And even when I went out as well, personally, I saw the fruit of that campaign and I saw how effective it was, because a lot of people were either not going to vote at all, they didn't really care. And once we gave them a couple of reasons why it was important to vote no, it's almost like, wow, okay, so we've pretty much got your vote now.
Yeah.
And not only are they going to vote, they're going to get the people that they know to vote. So, but I think it was probably a numbers thing. I think if we had more numbers, maybe it would have been a good idea to go to a lot of like left-leaning suburbs and trying to get them to vote as well.
And I agree, and when you're like, no one's invested, like no one wins out of this. There was nothing I personally gain out of going. I've got a family.
Yep.
There's nothing you get out of, but it's your sense of Christian duty. Mm-hmm. So you reflect upon everyone's own.
And you're saying this because you're disheartened at the fact that there weren't that many people that showed up to begin with.
Of course.
So these were people that were there at Mass. They were probably hearing it during the announcements. Look, there's going to be someone that's going to be speaking about the campaign, seeing how you can get involved. Please stay back after Mass. And then nobody would stay back, or you'd only get a couple of people staying back.
You'd get a lot of people signing that form after Mass. You put your pen, your name, your address, your date of birth, whatever. Mm-hmm. Those petitions after Mass.
Yep.
But is that all we can offer? As a Christian, have we fulfilled our duty by putting those details down, and that's it?
Yeah.
And then when you put your number down or your email, and someone texted you or emailed you, did you respond? Mm-hmm. What was the point of putting your details down if it was just for show? I always question, about how much you can do. You got to balance your own life, your own family, and things like that. But there are times in church history where you've got to step it up a little bit more. Yeah. You've got to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting though, because just to throw in a bit of theology there, St. Thomas Aquinas, he speaks about unjust laws. And he says that not only are unjust laws not binding, but he says that we have a duty not to follow them. And when we have a look at the the Vote No campaign, for example, when we have a look at what omission is the failure to do something that one can and ought to do. And if this happens inadvertently and freely, a sin is committed. So I think what people don't understand is that if people are complacent and people decide not to do something when they can, they do not understand, but that's actually the sin of omission. Whereas the sin of commission would be if a person, rather than doing nothing and sitting back and being complacent, not only did they do nothing, they went and actually voted yes. And we had a lot of people that probably did that as well, because they thought that they bought into the whole, we need to get with the times, love is love, unless love is obviously not love unless you believe what I believe. Yeah. Okay, that's when it becomes anger and so on and so forth. But I think as well, I think that the message wasn't sent out strongly enough to people that this is important. This is an important battle that we're fighting. You need to get up. And you need to do something about this. Okay, and you're right. We did lose that one. And I saw the stats and I saw the numbers and I saw where the votes had been changed to no, and I remember the maps that we got, and the maps that we got, okay, that told us target these areas. When it was on the news, I saw those are the areas that we actually targeted, and it's almost as though, thanks and predominantly probably to the Maronite community who have got a lot of zeal as well, it was only effective really in those areas. So what would you say to people, because we're going to be talking about the abortion campaign soon enough, but before we get to that, if you're gonna send out a message to somebody who's watching right now who could have done something, but they didn't, either because they felt like we were in a defeated position, or they felt as though it wasn't going to change anything, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. I would just say, reflect on what do you want to be remembered for, okay? And I often think about, do people know that you're a Christian? Like, if someone were to say, describe, Charbel for me, would the first thing they say about Charbel is a devout Christian? And that relates to everything, because our Christian identity and our Christian life isn't just another extra thing we do. It encompasses us. It should be the inner core being of everything we live, breathe, and think about. And so if that's what's on our mind, then we will be proactive. If you didn't get involved in that marriage campaign, for example, and you're kind of thinking, we're always going to lose, well, question, what God do you believe in? Do you believe in a God that you think is limited and finite? And do you believe in a God that you're calling the shots with what you believe in, and because you think that, you might have your own philosophies and understandings of things, that's the right God to believe in? I would actually really ask them to reflect on themselves and say, I always used to say this to the teenagers at the parish, are you a Christian by name or are you a Christian by life? Mm-hmm. And that's something I really would probably just get people to question,
Yeah, because a lot of people think that, obviously, when it came to the early Christians and their witnesses being martyrs, that was something that was very hard for them to do, to give up their life, their family, their incomes, just the suffering that they went through, and it's because of them that the church flourished in those early centuries as well. Yeah. But we are called to a different kind of martyrdom at the moment. We're probably not called to a red martyrdom at the moment, but we're called at least to do something. Yeah. We're called to do something. And the fact that so many people think that it is probably somebody else's job, or maybe it's your job, or maybe it's my job, that people can just sit back and do nothing. But it's important that people realize that every single vote counted. Yeah. And if we had those people who just thought to themselves, maybe if I actually did something, or maybe if I changed my position, maybe if I actually lived the faith, stood up for what I believed in, even if it didn't mean, that doesn't mean going and putting a vote no placard on and just getting people to honk and horn, and it could have been anything, but just to go out and do something, it would have made a difference, wouldn't it? Of course. And don't forget, there were almost 5 million people that still voted no. Yeah. There were almost 5 million. Because it wasn't a landslide now, and now laws have actually changed, and it was something like 60 68 to 32% or 64 to 36%.
61 to 39.
61 to 39%, you know? And so when you think about that, that's a lot of that's a lot of no voters.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of no voters. And to think that the law has actually changed because of that, and I guess we're going to see the repercussions of that very soon.
Yeah, and in fact we are.
We're seeing that
I
now.
would say that we are now, you know. Local councils that have public funded libraries.
Yep.
Having drag queens coming in.
Yep.
Teaching them to the kids. How would you feel?
Yeah.
If your son or daughter was, and you weren't notified of this, you
Yep.
know, being taught by a drag queen,
Yep.
reading you a children's novel about accepting all people for who they are, and you don't have a say in that. You know?
So it's limiting our free speech as
course
well, and
it
our
is.
freedom of religion as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on then. So the next campaign that you were involved in, and this was something that got a little bit more heated, was the Stand for Life campaign. Can you tell us about how you got involved in that?
Okay.
To start things off, go.
So the Stand for Life camp, I really was following it online, thinking about, you know, just ways. I mean, at a university, it's a hot topic. We'd have talks just on abortion and things like that on campus, but that's all it really was. But then two students, in fact, I remember coming into my office, Francis and Alessandra, if you're watching, and they said, Tony, what can we do about this? Like, let's do a rally. So we sat there and we said, okay, let's do a rally. And it took a lot of the effort of like Francis and you know, Alessandra. Then we met with different other agencies and said, let's be vocal. So we're talking about 7 days before the Martin Place rally. We had to organise sound, council approval, funding, and all these things, right?
But before you get to that, sorry to cut you off though.
Yeah.
Why did it get this serious? Like, what were these abortion laws about? What made this different?
Okay, yeah. So we're talking here, like what Gladys and the government, what Alex Greenwich was introduced. Funny that it was Alex Greenwich who I had hosted an event where he was on the panel for same-sex marriage.
Yep.
And he came out to UNSW and, you know, had a dialogue with Patrick Langrel. It's always the same people behind the same kind of pushes. That's what I'm trying to highlight here.
Yeah.
But
so Alex Greenwich, who was on the panel supporting same-sex marriage.
he was not only on the panel, he was like the head of the Australian Marriage Alliance or whatever it was. Like
for equality.
For equality, yeah.
Yeah, because he's a Greens member.
That's right.
And I remember him also from the show Filthy Rich and Homeless.
Okay.
Because he was on that on SBS. And so he was on the panel. He's part of that same-sex marriage equality alliance or campaign. And now he is behind the push to pass one of the most worst and most heinous abortion laws that this country has ever seen.
You can't. What you've just said is you haven't even done it justice as to how disgraceful this law is.
Yeah.
Put it that way. Having an abortion up to 9 months. And, you know, but the consent of two doctors. And then when you start to look at the details of what does the consent of the two doctors actually mean, the second doctor doesn't even have to speak to the patient. It can be through an email giving consent. Once, you know, reading off what the first doctor has. So, like, it's really sugar-coated.
So there's no counselling session, there's no...
This was blatant. We passed a law that is blatant murder.
Infanticide.
That's it.
Yep.
That's what I would put it down
And for
to.
any reason as well. And there was even going to be gender selective abortion as well.
Yeah, that got up, the gender selective vote. So there were all these amendments that started to be debated in Parliament. And we were standing outside Parliament, chanting every time, you know, if an amendment did get up, or trying to put pressure on the politicians who represent our views. But hold on, who introduced this bill? The Greens.
Yep.
Oh, no, sorry, Alex Greenwich, I think at the time was independent. I don't think he still belonged to the Greens party at the time.
Because I know he's green.
Still Greens?
But anyway, I'm not too sure. Anyway, yeah.
And so what are we going to do about this?
So there's harsh abortion laws that are about to be passed.
Yeah.
You and Francis are speaking. You're saying we need to organise a rally.
Yeah.
Did you speak to the bishops at all?
Yeah, of course. No, we spoke to the Eastern Council of Bishops and they backed it. So not just like the Maronite bishop, but all the Eastern Council of Bishops.
Yep.
So that's big. So that unites all the Eastern churches. Okay? They obviously were very, they financially supported as well as with the Western bishops. And then not only the bishops, but all the churches came together for this. This was kind of like the first time in Sydney history, or even in Australian history, where all the Christians were against this bill. All of the Christians.
It was
the Anglican
something that
bishops,
united.
Davies,
It was something that united us.
it united all of them, from
Yeah.
the Greek archbishop to the Maronite bishop to Archbishop Anthony Fish, to everyone. Everyone came together.
And
And it was beautiful to see that. It was beautiful to see all the Christians showing that in force how loud and vocal we can be.
Yep.
It took 7 days to get about 7,500 people in a Martin place, freezing, on a Tuesday night.
Wow.
On a Tuesday night.
Yep.
We advertised for the rally to start at 7 p.m. People were there at 5 p.m.
Yep.
News outlets came. It was a big thing. I was the MC for both rallies, and
Yep.
I remember the first rally, someone whispered in my ear, they were trying to tell us that they had to up the microphones in Parliament or something along those lines.
Because they couldn't...
Because they really couldn't hear because of how vocal we were.
Well, you know what? We've actually got some video footage of that. So what we'll do is we'll get Dwayne to play the video. Let's have a look at some clips from the rally, from the Stand for Life rally, and we'll just be back with you in a sec.
Our politicians disgracefully voted down protections for women and children.
This bill is an appalling bill.
We will not accept the manner that this government has allowed this legislation through this place.
We cannot allow this bill to pass.
And I am heartbroken at the callousness of a law that allows abortion on demand up until birth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the pro-life generation.
We have gathered in response to a call, the call to defend life.
No law should take away a child's right to life, let alone take it away in such a barbaric manner.
I just say how disgusted I am the way this is being ran through like a dodgy DA account.
We now have 3 weeks to garner and galvanise all of our voices in unison, calling for the bill to be
Women, you are being sold a lie. You should never have to choose between your life and the life of your unborn child.
Do you believe in God's power? And for those in the room tonight, we love you, and we the people of New South Wales need to send a strong message to our Parliament.
That they have delayed it for another 3 weeks, but we must let them know that in 3 weeks we may be back and we will stand
A baby's heart beats from 16 days.
All right, so we just watched the video. We sort of let our viewers see what happened at the Stand for Life campaign. So, tell me about your experience there. How did you feel on the night?
Yeah.
What did you notice?
Firstly, I just noticed there was definitely the Holy Spirit at work. That's for sure. There was this sense of Christian unity and just enthusiasm. I've never seen an enthusiasm like that. Like, I wish we had that in the marriage campaign. Like, you know, people rolling out in the thousands and thousands just to bear public witness.
Yep.
That, you know, we did what we did on the night. I was very nervous on the night. You had the likes of, you know, Barnaby Joyce and, you know, politicians and things that, that were coming up.
You had some big names there.
Yeah, we had
like,
all the bishops, you know. Bishop Macarius was there as well, the Archbishop, the Greek
one, the Greek bishop, the Coptic bishop was there.
Yeah.
Bishop Fisher was there.
Yeah.
There were also
a lot of politicians
as well as well.
Tanya Davies was there.
Tanya Davies, that's right. She was very vocal.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of and there were even people there that were trying to get on the microphone as well, which was funny.
That they wanted to have a chat.
Yeah, they wanted to have a chance to get up.
They wanted to have the chance to voice their support, but they couldn't.
And we're talking about just like we handpicked just a few people on the night. On the day we had to someone volunteered to go to Kennards High and pick up all the generators and things like that.
Oh, that's right. And what was the reason why? Because I heard there's a bit of a story behind that.
Yeah.
Because you had to get council approval in order to have the
so
rally?
technically technically for a rally, from what we understood, or from what I understood, and I could be wrong, you don't actually necessarily need permission to have a rally. But when you want to have amplified sound and things of the like, that's when permissions need to start. And that we can speak about in the next rally as well, with what went on there. But so we had to generate everything on our own, come up with our own. So Francis, our logistical and the brain behind
coordinator,
really everything.
Got generators to give you the power for the microphones.
And we just had random young, you know, even a lot of the university students were involved, like sitting on the mics, just in case someone might pull the cord out if there was a protester.
And there was security as well that helped out.
There was police as well. The New South Wales police were fantastic.
Awesome.
On the night, in fact, the one of them said to me, goes, you do this every night if you want. This was the easiest thing. Like, this was very easy
for us. Peaceful as well.
There was no drama.
Witness.
There was 7,500 people and no drama.
Excellent.
They saw protesters come and they told them, you're outnumbered, turn away.
Okay.
And they just simply, like, we didn't hear of any protesters.
Well, I was actually proud of what some of the churches were doing, and I was proud of some of the bishops for supporting the movement, because I, for example, came by myself and I jumped on the bus because some of the at St. Charbel's, because some of the churches had organised buses from their parishes there. And I think that contributed as well to getting people into the city too. The fact that there was a joint effort, there were people that were getting involved together. Parishes were actually getting buses of parishioners and sending them to the rally as well. That public witness was important, wasn't it?
Of course, and that takes prep as well. I remember getting in contact with some different people of trying to translate the flyer. With that flyer was translated, and mind you, we had about 7 to 10 days to organise this. That flyer was translated into about 12 different languages. So that went out to a lot of different ethnic groups as well. But it had the support of the hierarchy, which was so important. You saw leadership really in play here, and it inspired people to get up. You saw a lot of priests there. You saw seminarians there. You saw people paused what they were doing on that night, no matter what it was, even if it was a set routine, could have been a mass or maybe a Bible study. It all went on hold. Let's all come together and let's rally up and let's head down Martin Place.
So if any of the bishops are watching, probably a message that they could probably take from this is don't be afraid, and know that just your presence alone and you getting involved and you being a shepherd, you're going to have people that are going to be there willing to support you.
No doubt whatsoever. It's for the young Catholics as well. It was inspirational for them to see, even on a united front, just so many bishops together.
I was inspired personally myself when I saw the bishops that were there. I said, I feel like that's, let's go out and let's fight and let's do something.
And I would really say, and the witness study is the second rally, right? So that was the first rally, and the witness study is the second rally. When everyone came together, the second one had bigger politicians coming, so to speak, the likes of Tony Abbott and a few others that came on the night, on the day. Sorry, and that the second rally was more. You see, the first rally was on a Tuesday night. Very hard for family. Martin Place, stairs, access to parking.
Cold, weeknight work.
Yeah, so the second one, we tried to aim around families and the like. And so that's why the numbers were much bigger at the second rally as well.
Excellent.
But you know what? And I was the MC for both, and being so involved in seeing all that, it does, and if I'm being really honest, I lost a lot of hope in the politicians.
Yeah, because that's true. You're right. Keep going, because I want to finish your thought.
Like, we put I mean, it's not about we or anything like that. It's about the movement and the cause.
Yep.
And why would so many people come out to these rallies if they truly didn't believe what was happening was wrong? Yet, why wasn't it heard in Parliament? Why were the laws still passed? Why were just the amendments that we argued for rejected?
That's
why?
True. Yeah.
What's going on? What was going on at the time and the Gladys government at the time? Did we not know about secret deals, perhaps? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, you know what's interesting? I was listening to a talk and it made me do a little bit of research. There was a lecturer that was speaking about the political life and about politicians and their roles in government. And St. Thomas Aquinas actually says that to be involved in politics is considered amongst one of the highest virtues. Wow. And the reason being is because politics influence and affects laws. And the natural law or even the laws of the land, state law, should reflect divine law. You know, so it's a noble task to be a politician, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, for the right cause, and you're doing it almost like not in the name of God, but as a faithful citizen to God and to the state. And I think when I reflect on that, I think to myself, well, I don't think enough people are getting involved in politics, and I say that I'm probably to blame as well. Like I feel as though that I keep thinking that they're very separate, and I need to go out and evangelize to people to get them to be good Catholics. But we need a lot of good Catholics to get involved in politics. Yeah. Not only to get involved in politics, but also to know who it is that they're voting for.
Yeah.
And to know that these people that they're voting for have the ability to change laws and to stop certain laws from going into place. Yeah. I think that that's very important. Yeah. Now, what I was going to say, when it comes to the actual laws that were actually passed, like the abortion laws, for example, and I'm exactly the same as you. I was actually thinking to myself, well, look at the crowds that were outside. Look at all these people. It looks as though we had a voice, and it almost felt like it was a win. But even though it felt like a win, it wasn't a win, because the abortion law still got passed, you know? So as much as I felt as though I had done something, I'd felt like, where did we fail? Where did we go wrong? You know, that's very, and I think that's important for us to think about. So for a Catholic, me being a Catholic, when we go to the polling booths, are we doing research on the values of these candidates, of these members? Are we looking at these political parties and are we saying, what do these parties, what values do they stand for? I know there's a lot of probably Christians out there that think, you know, there's nothing wrong with even donkey voting. I can go there because every politician is just as bad as each other. Labor's just as bad as Liberal. It doesn't really matter. But what are your thoughts? It does matter, doesn't it?
Of course, and every vote matters, you know. Every vote matters, as it did matter in the same-sex marriage debate, as it mattered with who we put in positions of authority, so to speak. Politicians are meant to represent us and what our views are. But if we are not truly understanding, if they're not truly reflecting our values, then they need to be told that. Get on the phone. It's so people often think, oh, if they're your local member, it's so hard to get a hold of them. Not really. Call their local number, have a chat with them. Yeah. Voice your concern. It's better than sending an email. And you know, and the more times that a day that someone gets a phone call about a certain opinion that they have or a position they're going to stand, they're not there to represent themselves. They're there to represent the constituent, their own, who they represent. So the suburbs in the area that they
Now I'm going to get a little bit controversial because something just came to the fore of my mind. Gladys Berejiklian has got an Armenian background. She's Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. And she knows some of the bishops, and she I don't know whether she's a practicing Christian or whether she goes to church, but I've seen her at some of the some church events. Now, she's at these church events. She's claiming to be a professing Christian, yet at the same time she goes and it's almost like she stabs all these bishops in the back, you know, by signing off on this criminal law. Could the bishops have done something more? Was there a situation that you think that they could, like, because I know it's probably not timely to bring this up, but when those poor children, for example, they died in that car accident.
Yep.
The children of the Abdullah family. I know that Gladys Berejiklian was at the church, was at the funeral. Okay. Now I don't know whether there was communion that was given out there, but what do you think should have happened if, or maybe I don't know if it actually happened. What would you have done, for example, if you were the bishop or if you were a priest in that church and she came up to get communion off you?
Yeah, I mean, publicly, she has said her position, right? And I remember her going on the Ben Fordham show on 2GB saying, my personal stance is I oppose it as my own personal beliefs, right? But hold on, you have the power to reject it, and you've publicly come out and supported. So what have you done to yourself? You have, in a sense, you have excommunicated yourself from the communion of normal belief.
Yeah.
Within a church.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, she's not a Catholic. I'm pretty sure she's a Armenian.
She would be an Armenian Orthodox. Yeah.
So I don't know what the laws in that church was, but it did. From a lot of different WhatsApp groups that I'm in, whenever there was word around this time, around the voting, of a politician going to a church, if it was on Good Friday or if it was on the Easter, whatever it was, there was a heightened sentence of, we got to make sure if this person is coming that they voted against the abortion bill.
Yeah.
There was an awakening among the faithful there. And I actually remember, I can't remember what parish, but someone said that they were coming to attend a funeral and the parishioners had a stink up and they didn't end up coming.
Okay.
And in a sense, isn't that what we should be doing?
Absolutely.
If someone walks into your own home,
Yep.
the church is our home, and deliberately is against it by their policies,
Yeah.
do you welcome them? Do you want them sitting at the same table as your wife and your kids?
Yeah.
Would you want that?
Well, they're coming to the same church that they're almost trying to destroy.
Exactly.
Because if you're passing laws like these, you're killing the children of the church almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Now people might say, oh, but what about, you're being a bit too hard on them, you're being a bit too strict, and Jesus sat with the sinners, and okay, there's truth, Jesus did sit with the sinners, but all the sinners, after they sat with Jesus, they repented.
Yeah.
And they turned away from their sin.
Yeah.
And that's a fine line we've got to draw in the sand here.
Yeah, but the church is also, you're right, like St. Francis would say that the church is the hospital for the, sorry, not St. Francis, Pope Francis would say that the church is the hospital for the sick, But these are sick people that know they're sick, that are coming because they want a cure.
That's right.
Okay, if you've got people like Gladys, for example, that think that there's nothing wrong with voting for abortion or passing these abortion laws, these aren't people that think that they're sick, that they need healing. These are people that think there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They think they've done nothing wrong, and I think nothing could be more merciful and charitable for their soul than for them to be denied communion.
Yeah, and this is where I would always say, and I was always telling people, we lost the marriage campaign and we lost the abortion, the debates. We need to be a proactive church.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, we need to be a proactive church, not a reactive church.
Okay, what do you mean?
Okay.
What's the difference?
So just from experience, now I'm not defining anything definitively in that sense, but what I'm just trying to say is, from experience, we always react to the laws. And then we try and do a rally or we try and do something. Why aren't we being proactive? Why don't we have designated movements within the church, within Christianity, in Christianity in the public square, that is ahead, that knows, okay, in a year time, or like, why aren't we dictating what culture looks like? Why are we being dictated to about what culture is and shouldn't be?
Because it's always hard to fight on the back foot.
Exactly.
It's almost like the enemy has thrown 2-3 punches before you've even gotten started.
And not just that, when you're on the other side and you're trying to restrict things, you look like the bad person.
Yeah.
Why aren't you allowing two people to love each other? You look like the bad person. Just allow it. Mm-hmm. Why aren't you allowing women to make choices?
Yeah.
You start to get on the defensive in that sense, and it's harder to argue as well. So we need to be a proactive church, and that means rocking up to those door-knocking sessions. That means calling up your local MP. That means when it comes to voting, again, Remember who voted for, and it's your homework's done for you. There are different pro-life organizations out there that analyze and break down the views of every politician that you're about to vote for, and whether they align with your Catholic faith or your Christian faith.
Okay.
So find those resources. It takes 5 minutes to read. Know what you're voting for, because every vote, makes a difference.
And also for those people who are looking at probably not knowing whether they want to get involved in politics or whether they're finishing off a degree in journalism or some sort of a political science, maybe choosing a career path in politics as well, or getting involved, or maybe getting involved with your local council as well, and being that change that you want to see.
Of course. Yeah, and look, I think, what do they say in Australia? You don't talk about religion and politics at the table.
Yep.
Right?
Why not?
Yeah.
I think it's because,
within,
I don't know whether it's within our own culture, but I think it's because people are always very so passionate and so heated when they come into the conversations. If we have the ability to come in at least dispassionately, or at least being able to be civil, then we can actually have those religious discussions. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
And you don't want, but what that also does is that just that whole notion, that concept, it kind of it deters people away from politics, but to pursue a career in it, because a lot of people just think, oh, as you said earlier, all the politicians are the same. They all believe in the same thing anyway. Yep. They're all controlled by some minority or whatever. But no, you can be authentic. You can be an authentic Christian, a Catholic Christian, and you can do well, and you can thrive, and you can be a change in future policies and laws. And we can even rewrite laws, which is sort of what we're seeing in America with the Roe vs. Wade case. Yep. And the abortion law, it's almost, in some states being reversed.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think there's no time like the present, because I keep hearing about people who are maybe 1 or 2 generations older than us. Then when they were young, 18, 19, 20, there was very few people had conservative values. Few people understood about traditional morality or proper beliefs in God. There wasn't any catechesis the way there is now. But I think there's been there's a movement. There's a very very good, strong conservative movement that's happening at the moment. And we're getting a lot of people now that are not only learning and loving their faith, but they're able to explain them as well, and like there are so many people online on Facebook, on YouTube, for example, that have got initiatives, as well, where people are learning about their faith. And then when people learn and love their faith, they can end up taking that to the public sphere, and start to make changes. Of course. And I think that's very important. Yeah. And especially for example, with your chaplaincy programs as well. With your chaplaincy programs, you've got, you probably don't have the numbers that you'd like to have, but you're getting there. Yeah. And you've got all these initiatives that you guys are having. I've even heard about the Thomistic Institute in America, where a lot of the Dominican priests, who are very, very intelligent, are giving talks on campuses at secular universities, and they're doing very well. If anyone wants to go onto their podcast, the Thomistic Institute, they've got some great lectures. They've got some great podcasts. There's a priest that I follow by the name of Father Thomas Joseph White, and another priest by the name of Father Gregory Burns. They're such intellectual giants, and they're doing damages on these campuses, and they're defending the faith, against a lot of these left-wing radical secularist ideas.
And even in Sydney now, we're seeing it in the response of our students that come through the chaplaincies. Like, you got to understand, even if you're a parent watching this, whatever it is, the views out there are radical and they're very left. Yep. How are you going to protect your student or your son or your daughter from these views? And honestly, it's through the chaplaincies. Like, the work that comes out through the chaplaincies, and you just mentioned Dominicans. We have Dominicans on campus. Yeah. We have, I know at Sydney Uni, I can speak off the top of my head, they have, they run free Greek courses with a Dominican priest. Wow. You can just learn biblical Greek. Wow. The original language of what the New Testament was written in. Okay. All free. There's nothing, 99% of the events that we run are for free.
But people just need to be bothered, and they need to want to do it.
And it's also the awareness. And thanks for giving that chance here now to speak about it, because there's just that, to know that the church, another Archbishop Fisher always uses the term, the church is there for you from womb to tomb. Mm-hmm. And right now when you finish high school, well, where's the church? It's at university where you're going to end up, if you do end up there, and it's there for you. Yeah. And the chaplaincy program is thriving, and it's there for you to
Yeah.
attend to and to have daily mass, daily adoration,
Okay,
you know,
awesome.
the sacraments and things like that.
Okay, so you're speaking about reactive and proactive church. Okay, so let's touch a little bit more upon that before we kind of finish off. So, what do you see on the horizon, and how being proactive, or how can we be more proactive in order to make sure that the next attack, the next demonic, satanic attack, because at the end of the day, we've got to call a spade a spade. The devil's behind all of this. He was behind the same-sex marriage campaign. He was behind the abortion campaign. What's next? What do you think's coming next, and how do we need to prepare ourselves for it?
To be really specific, I'll just use things like the confessional seal and things like the euthanasia, another pro-life area. But I just want to take a step back and say this, right? I think the rise of atheism and living in a secular state and Catholics not speaking up in the public square is the biggest battle right now. You spoke about it earlier about not the red martyrdom, but the white martyrdom. The martyrdom that is of morals and ethics. That is so important for us to grasp, right? It dictates everything we do in our everyday lives. How many ads now do you see on TV that have same-sex couples in there, that have two dads and a child raised? Look at Netflix. How many people have Netflix? Now, okay, have Netflix. But do you boycott the programs that, you know, are very popular, but, you know, the main actor is a transgender? Or that, you know, they speak about having an abortion so freely and it's encouraged in the film. Look at how all these things that are being passed in government are now become a norm and reflective in society. You're telling me that they didn't have these things couldn't have been spoken about 10 years ago? Of course they could have. But now that these big companies have the backing of governments,
They have a license almost to do this.
And
they can promote it freely.
And my point is this: what are we doing to be countercultural?
Okay, so we need to be countercultural.
We
so
have to be.
Okay, so are you saying? Because we spoke about this on a segment with Father Russo as well.
Yeah.
Making sure that we don't watch programs like this.
Yeah, I want to flag it. I'm not saying live in a Catholic bubble and don't think that you're never going to experience or see evil and protect. No.
Yeah.
But we're not. We're called to be in the world, but not of the world.
Yep.
That is so important. If there are little things that you're going to have to sacrifice, and if it might mean stop watching a TV program, well, that's a sacrifice we should be willing to make. You spoke about earlier about the Christians being martyred. I can remember a story of the early Christians when they were being frozen to death in lakes, the early Christians. And all they had to do was say, I don't believe in Jesus anymore, or renounce their Christian faith. And to tempt them, what the Romans would do, they'd have hot baths around the lakes to tempt them.
To get them to get out.
Some of them would fall for the temptation, jump into the hot bath, and then die from hypothermia because of
the change in temperature.
But some of them who went to the death, froze, inspired the Roman soldiers that they stripped naked and jumped in the water and said, I want to die with believing in the God you believe in.
Wow. So they inspired them.
But if we're not living that now in our own way, now that looks very different in our own ways. If we're not saying grace, if we're not before meals in the public square, if we're too ashamed to do those things, then what witness do we have in the world? And if we have time, I might share a quick story.
Go for it.
I was at Sydney University catching up with a friend, and we were having lunch, and he's not really practicing the faith, but he knows I am. We're having lunch, and before we ate, I blessed myself and I said grace. And he, I could see it a bit awkward and stuff, but whatever, we said grace. 10 minutes later, someone comes up to the table. A random guy comes up to the table. And my friend looks at him and says, are you all right? Like, do you work here? He's like, no. He goes, why did you do that? And he looked at me and said, why did you do that? And then I was like, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Why did I do what? He goes, why did you make the sign of the cross? Why did you do that in the sign of the cross? And I said, look, I'm a Catholic and that's what I do. And my friend at that moment was like, oh, I told you someone's going to come and see. Like, really awkward about it. He was even kicking me under the table, like, just leave it. And I said, well, I'm a Catholic and that's what I give thanks to God for the meal in front of me. He goes, just before you did that, I asked God for a sign because I was about to take my life. And he opens his hand and he had pills in his hand that he was about to OD on.
Wow.
And at that moment, my friend's like, his jaw drops, like, what the heck has just happened?
Wow.
Did I wake up that day thinking when I say grace, it's going to have an impact on someone like that? No.
Wow.
Look how we, in the most simplest way, well, I thought we were simple, making the sign of the cross, but look at the power of the sign of the cross that can change the life of somebody through God's grace. And then my friend, I said, look, we'll catch up another time. So that, we sat down, we sat for 40 minutes, spoke about his decisions in life. He was stressed out through exams. He was Catholic. He recognized the sign of the cross. Ended up, I sat with him. He went through an examination of conscience, like an hour later, a couple of days later, he went and had a confession he hadn't had in about 18 years, and thanks be to God, he's back on track.
So public witness is very important.
I can't stress how important it is.
Okay.
And we know that.
Okay.
And every day I believe the Holy Spirit gives us a chance to be a public witness to our faith.
Okay.
Whether it's at work, whether it's raising our kids, whether it's what we're listening to on the radio, whatever it is.
Okay.
And how are we responding to that call?
Okay. Now, also, and you just reminded me of that, but just going back a little bit as well, when we speak about these radical left-wing groups that are on campus, okay, and the need for us to bear public witness against them as well, you know how the whole Black Lives Matter movement is happening in America? What they've moved on from is they started off as under the guise of Black Lives Matter, because they wanted to come off as a anti-racist organization. But if you have a look at the agenda of the actual website and at the agenda of some of its founders, it looks like they are promoting a lot of anti-Catholic agendas, and they're just using the Black Lives Matter page as a platform. And so a lot of them are pro-choice, pro-abortion, pro-LGBT. A lot of them are pro-transgender. And they're just using this Black Lives Matter racism platform in order to pass their ideas and their agenda through. Now, what I've noticed recently that's happening in America as well is, and there's a person by the name of Sean King.
Yep.
And Sean King has got a Instagram following of about 3.5 million people, I think it is. And he is going out now, and he is telling people to not to rebuke, but he's telling people that Jesus is depicted as a white male, okay, and that this has some sort of a connection with white supremacy.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though he's rallying up his troops and he's rallying up his followers to not only hate Catholicism and hate the faith, but to go out and damage church property, to go out and damage statues, to go out and damage churches. I've heard about a traditional Catholic parish in America that is getting attacked. I've heard of statues that have been desecrated. I've seen in America pictures of the Blessed Virgin Mary that have been desecrated with graffiti. Okay, and do you think that it's possible that this might happen in Australia? Like I know for example, with the Mardi Gras, there are a lot of people that they tried to attack the church at St. Mary's Cathedral. What did you see there?
Okay, just before I tell you what I saw, I don't know if you're ignorant or naive, whatever the word is, right? If you can't see that there's a common agenda here behind the scenes, then you're not being true to yourself. I have friends that have sent me screenshots of Sean King, especially about what he said about the Catholic statues and things like that. If you can't see that there's a Marxist, socialist agenda here, you are being deceived or you're not being true to yourself. Sure, no one's denying that there could be systematic and there is systematic racism and whatnot. But what does a statue of Jesus have to do with that? You speak about the vandalism of churches, and you spoke about the Mardi Gras. I was there. I think it was 4 years ago. I was standing guard at St. Mary's Cathedral because we got word that in the previous year, people were desecrating the cathedrals by urinating on the doors. So we went the year after, and we had some friends that all went there. We were in plain clothing, so you couldn't really tell what we were doing there, but we just had a bit of a logistical structure around the cathedral. I remember having to hold someone who I saw him urinating in a plastic bag and was about to throw the bag at the cathedral. So I walked up to the person and said, hey, look, I pretended that I wasn't protecting the cathedral, just to play it low, just in case it got too rowdy because there were a lot of people there. And I said, can I have that bag? Do you mind if I just put it in the bin? I go, I think that's pretty disgusting what you're doing. He goes, no, they deserve it. They deserve it. The Catholics, they deserve it.
Why?
These are, you would say, the same people that are arguing, that are in the rallies at Town Hall, Black Lives Matter. These are the same people that you see that are the organisers as well of all these rallies.
Because they all have that same anti-Catholic, anti-God, anti-traditional marriage, anti-life beliefs.
Yep. And then we even had someone who ran up to the stairs, and that's when I turned back around, ran up to this, and we had to grab him and we had to wave to the police, say, this guy's about to kick the door down. And he was completely drunk and everything.
Yeah.
And he was slurring and swearing about the church, and he was spitting.
Yeah.
You know?
And we spoke about this earlier, but I feel as though people, and we're getting to that now, where we're coming to a time where people are no longer complacent and no longer not caring. A lot of people were lukewarm, but I'm finding that people are jumping off the fence and they're going in either one direction or the other.
Yeah.
They're either falling in love with the church again, and they're looking at the truth and beauty of the church and being converted, but there's a lot of them that are actually falling off the other way, and they're hating the church. And they're seeing the church to blame for everything.
Yep.
You know? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get Dwayne to play a clip, and I'll just give you a bit of background. In Argentina, this is back in 2016, and you've probably seen the video already from a while back, but there was for the fourth year in a row, there were these feminists in Argentina that were assaulting Catholic men praying the rosary outside a cathedral. And you see within this video, Catholic men holding arms together, prayerfully praying the rosary while they're getting spat on, while they're getting sworn at, while they're getting graffiti and while they're getting spray paint sprayed over them. And it was so inspiring. And when I saw that video, it reminded me of the Knights. And I said, you know, this has inspired me to want to go and to want to do more. And I think the example and the witness that you're speaking about with regards to your witness at the cathedral is a perfect example of that. You know what? We'll go to the clip now and we'll show everybody just a little bit of the video to know what we're talking about. All right, so we've just seen that video. What are your thoughts?
Well, firstly, what a witness.
Yeah.
What a witness. And to the men watching as well, would you do something like that?
Yeah.
And we ought to, as men, as the fathers of the house, the household, the fathers of our own domestic churches, that's a great example they're setting for kids and for younger men and women. But then on the flip side, you can almost sense a pure evil. You can almost sense, like you said earlier, some kind of diabolical presence. And you said call a spade a spade. Well, we are at battle. St. Paul speaks about it, the spiritual armor of God. I think it's Ephesians 6, where he speaks about he's no longer fighting flesh and blood, but principalities
and powers.
Yeah, and I truly think that's being manifest
Yep.
in our times now. And if that doesn't wake you up to pick a side, what's that famous quote about? If you believe in nothing, you'll die for nothing, or if you stand for nothing.
If you don't live according to the truth, or if you don't live according to the truth, then you. G.K. Chesterton actually said it. He said, if you don't live.
Believing
if you're
in
not willing
something,
to live if in something, you'll end up
dying
believing
for
anything.
nothing. Yeah.
Dying
So,
for anything.
and that's what I would say to that.
Yeah.
Have a conviction, have a belief, have a firm belief, and be like those men and be courageous.
Okay, so because we're going to be wrapping it up now, what would you like to say to everybody that's been listening at the moment? I really want to give your chaplaincy a big shout out and a wrap. How can people get involved if people are at university at the moment?
Okay.
What can they do?
Yep. So if you're a student at Macquarie University, Sydney University, University of New South Wales, or the University of Technology Sydney, so UTS, just type in Catholic Chaplaincy at UTS or whatever. There's a Facebook group called University Catholics, or there's a Facebook group or page for every single group. You can even check out unicatholics.org.au, and you'll see everything there. Even in our COVID response, we've got so many events. We've got an event this Saturday with over 100 people registered for. It's a day retreat, great talks with Father Greg Morgan and things like that. You're on campus so many hours a week. Spend some time with the Lord. Equip yourself, prepare yourself, and we will offer you that formation. And as I said, there's never a cost at 99% of our events. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for that, Tony. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it, and I hope things continue to go well for you with the chaplaincy. And I guess I'll see you on the battle lines at the next fight.
See you there.
Thank you, guys, for watching. That was another episode of Couch Catechism. We'd like to thank Guardians for hosting us. God bless. Keep the faith and fight the good fight. See you later.